Everyone, so today I'm going to take you through a bit of a tutorial on how to make knob scales in Inkscape. And this is a bit of a cheat really. Someone else has created a bit of an extension which you can easily download and use that extension to create them. So let's get started. So the first thing you need to do is to jump on this Inkscape extension, which I'll put a link to in the description, and then you just download this version of it. So just go to GitHub and then download the zip. Once you've done that, you can add the extension. There's a how to load extensions here, which I'll also put that in the description. So once you've downloaded the extensions, you're ready to start, and it's really quite simple. So the first thing you need to do is go to extensions, and then you go to render, and in render all your the ones you've downloaded, and there's knob scale there. So you hit that one, and this is where you can start to make your knob. So I usually leave the center X at 30, center Y at 0.1. Your knob radius, so you can play around with this. Let's make that 20. Now, the reason why I make it 1.5, I'll show what happens if you make it 20. So I'll make it 20. And then I always like to hit live preview, so at least you can see what you're actually designing. I'll let this, it takes a little while to sometimes bring up the preview, but it's definitely worth doing, so you can at least see. Oh, she's still thinking. Yeah, it usually appears up this top left hand corner here. I'm not sure why, but it's just what it does. Alright, so now you can see the knob radius around here is 20 mil. Now I actually really like to make it, bring all those lines into the middle, so I make that 1.5, and then if we do that, you'll see that those lines converge right in the middle, and that gives you a good center point. So if you're using these for front panels, you can easily find a center point and drill a hole for your potentiometers. So we'll just let that render. Okay, so now you can see we've got a small hole there. Now this is quite large. This must be, the resolution of this must be around 50, 70 mil, so it's very large. So once I shrink this down, that hole will go very small. Now the next thing I like to work on is the marks. You've also got line width as well, so we can change that, but you can also change that later. So I usually just leave it on 0.5, the line width, but you know, if we change that to 2, and there we are, you can see the lines are thicker. So I think I was 0.5 that I usually have them on, so we'll just change that to 0.5 again. So we'll start there. Now the next thing, we'll go to marks. Now number of ticks, I've got 10. Now if I wanted to have a 0, so a 0, then I'd make that 11, and you'll get 0 to 10. Tick size, so 35 the ticks, these are the large ones here, and the sub ticks are the small ones here, and they're 30. Now I like to change the number of sub ticks. It's a good way of, if you really need some fine adjustments, then you can add 3 sub ticks. So now we're starting to build it up. You can see that we've got more ticks there, sub ticks. It's always probably a good idea to have your tick size for your numbers larger than your sub ticks. It just becomes too confusing if you have your sub ticks the same as your tick size. So I just usually reduce it by about 5, but you can reduce it as much as you want. Now we'll go to labels. And labels allows you to make the numbers larger or smaller depending on what you need. So this is the label size here. Your offset, now this is the distance between the tick and the number. Let's change that to 8. You can see that now, the offset's further away. So let's leave, I think that looks pretty good. So make sure you hit apply and then just close that. Now, if you just leave this and try to, let's say, move this knob around, well, the first thing you're going to do is you won't be able to do it because it's not grouped. So you need to group this first. So just shift it and then right click and group. Now it's grouped, you can move it around. One of the other things I found tricky was to ensure that it stays perfectly round. Now you can grab this arrow here and start pulling it down to make it smaller, but you can see that how do you know if it's going to stay round or not? So what I try and do is hit, you can hit the comma or the full stop on your keyboard. If you hit the full stop, it grows larger, comma grows smaller. So I use those, and probably a better way of doing it, but if I just hold my finger down, I can shrink it down to the size I want it. You can see that hole getting smaller now. And then you can see that the ticks are getting darker as well. So if I wanted to lighten those ticks up, you can just go up to here, hit your stroke style, and we'll bring that down to 0.2. So that looks good to me. I'll close that. Now, what I like to do next is to work out the size of this, and the way that you work out, the way I found anyhow, the best way to work out the actual size of this is to use the measuring tool. So if you hit M, you can bring up the measuring tool, and I usually start from the furthest tick to the next one. So that's 28 mils. You can see that right there. So I know it's 28 mils. Now I know my knob is 15 mils that I want to use. So if and I don't want the knob to obviously meet at the ticks, I want the ticks to be seen underneath the knob. So I really want my knob to be start about here. So start about here. Now that's about 15 mils there. The ticks to me are still too large, so what I will do, let's escape out of that, is to reduce it by hitting the comma, and then I'll just add my spacing again. You can see I'll just make that 15 mils. You can see it's getting close now. I'll just X out that, and then we'll try that again here. So that's 15 mils. So you can see that if I was going to, the subticks will still be seen. We'll do a subtick one. That's 15 mils there. So maybe a little bit too large still, so we'll just shrink it down a couple more. And that's probably around the size that I want it. We'll just do another check. 15 mils, yeah, that looks pretty good. So now you've made a knob scale. You can start to build your synth. So I just usually duplicate one if I need another one, and then you can just start building it up. Duplicate it again, and just start building it. So once you've got your knobs, you can start labeling them. You can start designing how you want your front panel to look. So yeah, that's how you create a knob. I'll also do another tutorial on how to start building the synth up and the design of it, and how to create some frames around it and add labels and stuff. But it's just a basic one on how to create these knob scales. So I hope that helped, and have fun. Cheers.